For so many people, the Finger Lakes region is amazing to live in, and there's so many things to love about this place. But not everything is amazing, and there are many aspects that not many people love, to be honest with you. So that being said, in this video, we're going over the pros and cons of living in the Finger Lakes. Let's dive into it. What's going on, guys? My name is Anthony Hamilton with the American Home Team here at eXp Realty in the Rochester and Finger Lakes region. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. And as much as I love making these videos for you on all things Rochester and Finger Lakes living, I would love even more to help you with those real estate needs. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out. That information on the screen, I'm the guy that answers those texts, emails, and phone calls. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out. We have people reaching out years in advance before moving here, and they've already decided they want to work with us. So that's amazing. We definitely appreciate that. And moving right into the video, though, we're talking about the pros and cons of living in the Finger Lakes. So pro number one, we're talking about festivals galore. The Finger Lakes region has so many festivals, and it's just such an amazing place. Everything from celebrating pies, right? Grape pies and grape vineyards, all the way to hot air balloon festivals and anything in between. A bunch of local churches will hold, like I know in Canandaigua they do the St. Mary's Festival, and it's just an amazing time for anybody involved. You don't have to be religious to go. It's just on the church grounds basically, but they have everything that you would have at a festival. Everything from fried dough to carnival rides to winning prizes at the you know, the things that you throw the baseball at, like the target or whatever, to the basketball shooting competition thing, and you know, everything that you can do at a festival they have here. At Letchworth State Park, they have a balloon festival, so hot air balloons will come up out of the park there, and out of the gorges and waterfalls, and it's an amazing. A bunch of photographers and videographers go because it's such an amazing kind of scene. You know, I've got some buddies who do a lot of the photography in real estate here, that they capture some amazing footage of the festival over there at Letchworth State Park, and you really can't beat it. You know, you got, because of the waterways, and then when they do it, you have some kind of like steam or fog rising from the hills there, and it's amazing. You have to go there and see it. And maybe I'll post a picture in here in the video of that, the balloons rising and everything. It's just amazing. You're gonna love it. But there's tons of festivals. Rochester is considered Festival City, and the Finger Lakes is so close to Rochester. So we get a lot of that, you know, kind of trickle down effect, if you will, here in the Finger Lakes. And I know Ithaca has a bunch of festivals. It could be art festivals and whatnot. Canandaigua, where I live, a bunch of art festivals, small business festivals. Small businesses will line Main Street, Canandaigua, and you go and you walk shop to shop and you just see what kind of things people have. And usually it's going to be your small business, like the mom and pop stores that like the small business you want to support, right? They're homegrown business owners, and they have a product that they actively make, and they sell. And these aren't multi-billionaire companies, right? These are your local small businesses. So these are the people that you want to support and spend your time supporting and talking with and having a cup of coffee with and what have you. So great people and great merchandise as well. So get out and explore all of those, and you know, it's just an amazing time in the Finger Lakes. Anytime you're going to any of the festivals, kids love it, adults love it, and you know, it's just a blast. Moving right along to pro number two of living in the Finger Lakes is going to be that the Finger Lakes region has all four seasons: spring, summer, winter, fall, right? And all of those seasons are fairly mild compared to a lot of the rest of the country, right? That being said, you know, winter obviously being what people dislike the most. A lot of people are snowbirds, and so during the winter time, they'll move down to Florida, or they will, you know, go somewhere else that's warmer or maybe has a more mild winter time. But that being said, here are the averages of daytime temperatures per season in the Finger Lakes region. So in the springtime, you're looking at March all the way to May, and your daytime temperatures are 50 to about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So very mild, right? That's beautiful weather. I know my wife and I, we love when it's about 60 degrees, 65 degrees. It's perfect like weather just to get outside and be active and do something. Maybe 70 degrees is great. It's nice and mild. You're not going to sweat up a storm, right? But it's not going to be too cold for you either. So it's just a perfect temperature. Moving into summer, June through August, you're getting a little bit hotter, so it's going to be 70 to 80 degrees roughly daytime temperature. There's going to be days you're in the mid 80s, right? But not very often do we get into the 90s, and certainly not the hundreds. I know Arizona, right? They're at 110 in the summertime, or Florida, they get up to 95 or 100. The Carolinas get close to 100, or maybe 90s or so. We don't really get that here. Very rarely do we get into the 90s. And I think maybe since I've been alive 29 years here, I don't remember maybe one time or two times getting into the hundreds throughout my life here. So, it's very mild in the summertime too. Again, 70 to 80. And, sometimes this past summer we got pretty hot. It was peaking at about 85, I'd say. But very manageable and tolerable for most people when considering summertime. And then fall, so September to November, you're looking right back to right around the springtime temperatures. So your daytime temps are going to be 50 to 60 degrees. Very mild, very manageable. Now, what I will say about fall is that it starts to rain a little bit. So with the rain, now you're looking at that 50 degrees on a colder day, and it's wet, so it's going to feel a little bit colder, right? Anytime you're wet and there's, I'd say, a sub 70 degree temperature, you're starting to get pretty cold. So that 50 and rainy is going to be cold. Here in the Finger Lakes region, in the fall season, we're looking at more rain than most of the country, maybe. I guess I don't really have statistics on how much rainfall we have in the fall comparable to the rest of the country, but I'd imagine it's a little bit more. Just on those days, it becomes a little bit miserable. But this fall we've had a fairly warm fall. I'd say in the mid 60s for most of it, and that's just beautiful weather, especially if the sun is out. It's just gorgeous. So moving into the winter, you're looking at December through February. Now, this is where people get miserable. You're looking at 20 to 30 degrees daytime temperature. Really, that's not terrible. Now, what I will say about that is 20 to 30 degrees, that's cold if it's raining or if it's snowing. If there's snow on the ground, it's pretty cold. And then especially if there's a wind gust, it's going to feel pretty cold. So if you're relocating from anywhere down south or anywhere warmer like Arizona or California or Texas or Florida or anywhere, it's going to feel cold. But with the snow, because we do get snow, it's not just cold, but we get snow as well. We're not getting slammed like Buffalo does. You go a little bit more west, about an hour to an hour and a half to Buffalo and Niagara Falls in that region. They're getting pounded with snow. Sometimes they get feet at a time. Last winter, there was 2 major storms where they got anywhere from 3 to 5 feet at once. So significant amounts of snow, and that brought major chaos to the city of Buffalo. They couldn't plow the roads fast enough. They couldn't help people fast enough. Power was going out. So those were major storms. But we're not getting that here. We're not even getting that in the Rochester region. So it's very mild with the snow. You know, any given time we might be getting a few inches of snow, enough to cover the ground, maybe to build a snowman. I know with the winter coming, my daughter's been begging for Elsa of Frozen to build a snowman, right? For her to make it snow, and so she can build a snowman. But you know, we get enough to do that, and then you get enough to go hit the slopes, skiing or snowboarding. Maybe, and it gets cold enough to ice fish on the lakes around here, but we're not like an Arctic tundra. I know a lot of people see memes of New York or something and they think that it's just like Antarctica, and it's not. So don't be thinking that, but it is pretty mild regardless in all 4 seasons. But the best thing is that we have all 4 seasons. I remember being in Hawaii and it was the same temperature all year round, which honestly, it's amazing. That's great. But I'm not going to lie to you. Something about Christmas time doesn't feel right when it's 85 degrees outside. It just doesn't. How are you going to watch Christmas movies and have palm trees and warm weather outside? You know, it's weird to me. Christmas isn't Christmas without snow and cold, you know. It's just it's a different kind of thing, I guess, but that's just my 2 cents. But yeah, so it's 4 seasons. It's great. You get to experience all of it, all the different activities within each of those seasons. And you know, you just, if you hate one of the seasons, you just grin and bear it. You just get through it. It lasts only a couple months, so just deal with it. And moving along to pro number 3, we're talking about all of the water here in the Finger Lakes, right? I've said it on so many of my videos before. It seems like every single time I talk about the Finger Lakes, there are 11 lakes that make up the Finger Lakes. And you really can't run out of things to do on the water. There's just, you know, and you know, it's funny because studies show that people are happier when they're at, like, on or around a body of water. It doesn't matter how big, if there is water nearby, something happens to us as humans that makes us happier and more energetic and more, you know, just lively. It just seems, it's apparent. It's apparent, and you can feel it when you're by the water. And you know, in the Finger Lakes, like, I believe that a lot of the time it seems like people seem to be more happy rather than places where there are no water around, right? So that being said, digressing from that point, you know, on every single one of the lakes here, you can boat and you can have a motor boat, right? So you can have a motor on them. Even the smaller lakes, I know, you know, historically, I think it was on Honeoye Lake, they weren't allowing motors on the boat. So you could take out a kayak or a canoe or a paddle boat or something like that, but they weren't allowing motors. Now they allow motors. I don't know when that changed, but as far as I can remember, they've always allowed motors. So so that's great. You can go out into the depths of the lake as deep as you want. You can hop in, you can swim. And like I've mentioned before, on the 4th of July, I know on Canandaigua Lake, but also pretty much all of the other lakes, there's always going to be a chain of boats linking up, and you know, they're just going to be hanging out and having a good time. And you know, some of the younger kids on the boat will be partying or whatever, but you know, 4th of July or Veterans Day, or you know, any of these other holidays. I'm really bad at knowing when the holidays lie, so that's my bad on that. But any of the holidays where it's warm weather out, they go out on the lake, they enjoy the time. Memorial Day weekend, I believe it is, that they go out and they'll link up the boats and they'll play music on one of the boats, and they'll have a couple drinks, and they'll bring some subs or sandwiches or, you know, chicken wings or whatever it is. A lot of people will grill out on the boat, have a really good time. Not to mention fishing, ice fishing in the wintertime. There's trout derbies in the riverways, and you know, with all of the lakes here, it brings us to an abundance of like waterfalls and riverways and streams, and on a lot of the waterfalls around here, you can find any given park that has waterfalls, and there's gonna be like a little chute thing where you can actually go and slide down the waterfall. So it's gonna be smoothed out on the rock, and the kids can go and as long as they're a little bit careful, they can slide down, and at the bottom there's a big pool of water, so they can splash in the water and swim. So it makes for a really good time, you know, hiking to the spots, and then just having fun on the chutes. So it's just the waterways around here, I think, are, in my opinion, it's the biggest advantage of being here. You know, the Finger Lakes is the Finger Lakes because of the Finger Lakes. It's, you know, you're not calling it the Finger Lakes. It's not the region it is without the lakes. And I think what's so significant about it is that there's 11 of them. It's not just one or two, it's 11, and they're all kind of spaced apart, so you can drive and you can hit all of them on a single drive, you know, within roughly 2 hours or so, hitting all of them, maybe 3 hours. And you know, again, there's breweries and wineries and all sorts of fun things along these lakes, restaurants and Airbnbs and hotels. And so the lake life here is one of the biggest factors making up the Finger Lakes, and it is what most people are here for. It's just the beauty, it's the things to do, while maintaining a lower cost of living and keeping the weather in check. So this area is just amazing because of that. And so, you know, if you're a person that likes water, if you like lake activities or beach activities or whatever, there's all sorts of things that you can do here. You're not going to get great beaches like you have out in Hawaii or down in Myrtle Beach or, you know, Florida or anything like that, right? But you're going to have smaller beaches, local beaches that people go and you can walk out onto. You have sandbars and stuff. So really, it's a really good time. And the waterways here are what makes the Finger Lakes, and it's just what makes it so enjoyable. So if you're coming out this way, the lake life is something that you have to experience, or else you're not getting the full experience of the Finger Lakes. All right, moving on to the con section of this video. The first thing I think that I wanted to mention, for this video's sake anyway, there's many pros, there's many cons, just touching on a few, right? One of the biggest things I think that I hear a lot is going to be limited job opportunities, or the limited diversity of jobs, right? So the Finger Lakes area, just because of location and because of the topography and the type of land that we have here, right? You're looking at a very limited range of primary job opportunities or job markets. So really, you know, the biggest job market that we have here is going to be healthcare and agribusiness. Agribusiness being agriculture, and then the actual business behind making the food and selling the food and that kind of thing, right? But there's jobs obviously as farmers or anything in the agriculture business. So you're running the mills, you're doing the actual production of the food. And then in the healthcare, right? Nurses, doctors, things like that. They all need family practices. They all need nurses for the emergency centers or the urgent cares and that kind of thing, right? And then I'd say next is going to be education. So teachers, and then specifically higher education when you get down into Ithaca or, you know, Hobart William Smith or Finger Lakes Community College, or you know, any of these universities and colleges in the Finger Lakes region. There's a bunch of them. You're gonna need professors and teachers, so at the higher level. And then, you know, I'd say mechanical work, so you know, vehicle mechanics, diesel mechanics, things like that are pretty prevalent here too. But outside of that, like, you might be talking about a few professional jobs, things like lawyers, right? But you know, you're not looking at the opportunities that you would normally get in a bigger city. opportunities for teenage kids or school-aged kids are going to be a little bit limited because there's just not as much in the Finger Lakes region as there would be in a medium-sized city, something like Rochester or Syracuse. So what a lot of people will do is a lot of people commute to Rochester or Syracuse, depending on where you are in the Finger Lakes. Or, Auburn has a pretty big job market. There's a lot of different things there. But there is a lot you can do here. But as far as diversity of jobs here, you're not looking at major financial institution banking, right? You're not looking at New York Life or something, or MetLife. You'd have to get into like New York City or maybe Albany or something like that, right? Some of these bigger cities. So real briefly, just touching on the job markets, it's not very diverse. I would consider that a con of living in the Finger Lakes region. Entrepreneurship is big here, and kind of like running your own businesses, that's big here. People kind of find their own ways to make money. That is legal, right? So, just keep that in mind. It's important when relocating somewhere. Are you and your kids going to be able to find gainful employment? Are you going to actually be able to make a good living out here? And while cost of living is cheaper out here, that provides no benefit if you can't get a decent paying job. So you can find them. It just really depends on the field that you're in and, if you're going to be taking a significant pay cut or not. So reach out. We'd certainly love to help you in kind of navigating that path. I don't know all the answers, but I can figure out people who do know the answers to those type of things. So just reach out. We're happy to help. And so sort of touching on what I just talked about, just with the location here, you're talking more of a rural type setting. So, the con would definitely be lack of an urban environment. So when you get into bigger cities or bigger areas, you're looking at a lot more to do. You're looking at different things to do, and quite possibly a lot more opportunity. Whereas out in the Finger Lakes, you're talking a more rural setting. So you're not going to be getting necessarily the walkability that you would get in a city type atmosphere. Now, I've mentioned it on many videos before that every individual town has like its city limits. Within those city limits, most of them are going to have walkable stores, walkable coffee shops. You can maybe walk to the gym in some of these places, or walk to the store, or what have you. But it's going to be longer walks. You're not, it's not a major city where you can walk to literally everything that you need to do or ride your bike. A lot of it is maybe rolling hills and longer country roads, if you will. So you're probably going to want vehicles. You're going to want access to quicker transport, right? And so if walkability is important to you, like going to walking from your house to a coffee shop or something, maybe the areas you might want to look for is something like a Geneva or a Canandaigua, or possibly Auburn, or like inside the city limits of Skaneateles or Ithaca, right? But then also like getting up toward Rochester, you're talking Fairport, Penfield, Pittsford. So these are the areas that are pretty much walkable. But otherwise, once you start getting out of the city limits, you're talking a couple miles that the next store could be at, or the next coffee shop could be at, or something like that. So keep that in mind. It's not as walkable as an urban lifestyle would indicate, or would be. So that's something that's pretty important to a lot of people. A lot of people have been reaching out to me and they've been saying, I want somewhere that's going to be walkable. And so I say, okay, well, the countryside of the Finger Lakes is not for you. Views of the lake, probably not, right? You can get within city limits, but chances are you're not going to be living on the lake. You're not going to be near the lake necessarily. Or you might not be able to walk to the lake even. So, just those kind of things are important for a lot of the people moving here. They express interest in that kind of thing. So definitely thought I'd bring that up as a con so that you guys are expecting it when you reach out to me. And last but not least, but coming on the coattails of walkability and that type of thing, basically you need to get a vehicle. Aside from you know, just proximity to things being walkable, you know, we need to actually address the winter weather as well. So while I said earlier in the video that you know, the seasons are fairly mild, the snow is fairly mild, there are still those instances throughout every winter where you're gonna get slammed by snow, you know, any given week, right? Or you might get a random snowstorm or something like that. But also, you know, we're not exempt to high winds or freezing winds or even just freezing temperatures. It does happen. So, you know, the last thing you want is to have a doctor's appointment, not have a vehicle, and you still have to walk to work even though it's blizzarding and it's freezing cold outside, or everything is icy and you have to walk, right? There's a good chance that you can bust your ass. So so, you know, just be cognizant of that. I know in a lot of videos I talk about the winter weather and you know, I kind of go back and forth on how it's bad, but it's not that bad, and whatever. It's kind of hard to give an accurate description of it without you being here and seeing it, because everyone's perception or perspective is a little bit different, right? But you're definitely going to want a vehicle. You don't want to be caught out in a snowstorm or just in the freezing wind, you know, without a vehicle, or just trekking yourself to work or to the doctor's office or to the grocery store or whatever. That's the last thing you want to be doing. So even if it's a winter beater, just to get you through the winter, and then maybe you can walk in the summertime, that's fine. But I would definitely recommend not even riding a bike in the winter. You definitely want an enclosed vehicle, something that can get you through, that preferably has heat, that you know, can get you there safely and more quickly, so that you don't have to freeze on the way to wherever you're going. And so that's it, guys, the pros and cons of living in the Finger Lakes. I hope you got something from this video. If you did, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. And with that being said, as much as I love making these videos for you on all things Rochester and Finger Lakes living, I would love even more to help you with those real estate needs. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out to that information on the screen. I'm happy to help, and until the next video, guys, we'll see you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.